Welcoming back to the stage, Dan Primack.
Hello, everybody. This is our last session. There is going to be lunch after this. I know I and my guests in a minute are the only thing standing between you and real food. I appreciate it. I appreciate that we are in New York City, but I would be remiss if we didn't do something with a little bit of a Boston twist, since that's where I'm from. So please welcome the owner of the Boston Celtics, Wyc Grousbeck.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Wyc. Thanks. So Wyc, you buy the Celtics about 21 years ago for a scant, let me see this here, $360 million with your partners. You buy it from an owner who first told you the team was not for sale. I assume the Celtics today aren't for sale. So what would it take somebody coming to you to get the club?
Sorry, they're just not for sale. There's not a speculation about it. But maybe someday we take them public, and then everybody can have a little piece.
The Celtics were once public. I had like 3 shares as a kid I got as a gift, and then it weirdly became a tax problem for like the rest of my life until you guys somehow bought it back. Okay, so I mean, the reason I guess I ask is it seems, and this isn't just the NBA, but this is pro sports in general, that there is no ceiling to the escalation of club values. Do you believe there's a point in time in which that starts to, if not equalize, at least plateau?
Here's what I think. I think that if it were just a financial transaction, there'd be a ceiling, because like markets go up, they may go up a few percent a year, but they go down, they go up. But I think these clubs, these teams, I think they trade on, it used to be called boys with their toys. That's an outdated phrase, and I can't use it, so I retract it. But,
although almost every owner every owner is a man.
But not all. But it's people who want to be competitors. People want to be on the world stage trying to hold up a world championship trophy. That's not a financial thing. That's an emotional thing. And the people like Steve Ballmer, who could shock the world and pay $2 billion for the Clippers, I know Steve now, and I believe that he did that out of love and passion. That's why we bought the Celtics. So the high bidders for these teams are not financial buyers debating whether or not to buy the S&P index or a team. There, because it's the only, once they think of it, it's the only thing they can imagine doing.
Is there a point that, obviously there's the supply-demand imbalance, right? Very, limited 30 NBA teams and more people that want to buy them. But there comes a point where, and this has definitely become true in the NFL more, where the prices are a bit higher, but where the prices get so high that supply-demand thing starts to even out a little, because there's only so many people who can afford $4 billion for a club.
Right, I don't know. We actually paid $200 million of equity, and my piece of it, part of it was I mortgaged my house. You can't mortgage your house and buy one of these teams anymore. That's all, I'll just leave it at that. It's out of hand, and I assume it'll probably flatten out or go down.
There's talk about a Vegas expansion team. Do you have any sense on what the fee would be for that team?
I can't comment. I'm on the committee that would approve or not, but we're not talking about that.
Would it be more or less than you paid for the Celtics?
Well, let's hope it would be more. Yeah, 20 years in.
Which city gets a team first, Vegas or Seattle?
Dan.
I'm sorry.
Let's have another one in Boston.
You want a second team in
friendly
Boston?
Competition.
Friendly competition. Fair enough. Actually, let me ask about Boston. You're you're a team that does not own your own building in Boston. Do you feel that puts you or the franchise at a competitive disadvantage than teams that do own their own?
Well, the positive spin is that we're asset light. We're not putting on a new roof or a new boiler or whatever it is you have to do, like when you own a house. But we are tenants at the Garden. The Bruins owners, the Jacobs family, Delaware North owns the Garden and the Bruins. And we are very close friends. I went to Charlie Jacobs' wedding in Zermatt in January. It was a business trip, except we were skiing the Matterhorn. But we're great friends, and they've been great partners. So it's all worked out great. It really has.
One of the things that Boston does not, you talked about the second NBA team, Boston. One thing Boston doesn't have is a WNBA team. Why?
There's some discussions underway, but for us to do it when we don't own the arena, we then need to actually, I think it makes more sense for an arena owner to own a WNBA team or an indoor lacrosse team or to some extent an NBA team. It's a more natural thing than to go say we've got to go find some dates for our team.
Do you feel if you did own the Garden that the city would have had one by now?
I've been open to it all along, except that it just doesn't work out as well if you don't own the building, because then you're saying, well, could we have Bruce Springsteen in here or have a basketball game? I think stay tuned, but I'm not sure. I've heard some rumblings, but stay tuned. Please.
You personally, a lot of folks who own pro sports teams have kind of created diversified portfolios. You know, in Boston, Henry's bought, in the Premier League. You, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you personally, some of your partners, but you personally haven't bought other teams. Why not?
Well, I did mention accurately that I mortgaged my house as part of so this is really, I'm kind of all in on the Celtics.
It's worked out. It's worked out great. I'm assuming you've gotten some of that back.
But we haven't ever sold a share. We haven't ever, we do cash dividends now and then when there's any extra money around, but it's not always that way. This is my life's work. I have my hands full, and we were talking before, you're like, how many games do you go to? And I still go to, out of 82 regular season games, I go to 50. Home and road. So, I'm kind of fully engaged. That's my model for being a team CEO and team lead owner, is to be there. And so doing that in 3 different cities doesn't make sense to me.
There has been criticism in Boston of a different team owner who will remain nameless because he does own lots of teams, and there's a perception, at least among the fandom and sports radio world, that he is distracted because he owns multiple teams in multiple leagues. Do you believe you can be a good steward of a franchise if you own multiple franchises in multiple cities of multiple sports?
Well, I think I know who you're talking about, and that person broke the curse and won 4 World Series in Boston.
And just finished last place.
They should have a statue up to him, is my opinion.
That doesn't answer my question. Do you think you can be a good owner?
I'm aware it didn't answer your question. No, you can definitely be. Look at Stan Kroenke, he won the NBA and the NFL, and has had a very good team in Arsenal. So Stan would be to the contrary.
And cannot
How's that answer? Did that answer your question?
It did. He cannot set foot in St. Louis probably, but yes, that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about your club. The season opens in 2 weeks?
Yep.
The team is going to look very different on the court. You've had this isn't a situation in which the Celtics have been a bad team and thus you had to bring in new players. It's been a very good team, and you decide to, 2/5 of the starting 5 is probably going to change. Why make significant changes to a club which has seemed to be has been knocking on the door?
We've been on like Camp 4 of Everest, and we didn't get to the top the last few years. We were in the conference finals, I think, 5 times. So Final 4 5 times, finals once, I think, and just didn't get there. And so we met after the season ended disappointingly this year and I said, we're not bringing back the same team. We're making changes because we've had 2 years of inconsistency and falling short. And so we made some changes. It was tough to let a couple guys go. They're very good people. We brought in new players, and now we have 4 All-Stars actually at once. We're kind of
how much do you feel
being greedy about it.
How much do you feel that's your job to come in and say we're making changes, not with the franchise and with seating in stadiums, but on the court?
It's definitely my job. I've got to set the tone. When we win, I feel very proud. When we lose, I say to people, my job is when we lose, blame me. I mean, I hired the coach, I hired the general manager, I approve the trades, and if the ball doesn't bounce in, I'm not going to look at anybody else.
Let me ask you about one of the trades. So shortly after you bought the team, I had just bought a season ticket package. This is 2003, so you'd owned the team for about a year. And a couple days before the season, you traded Antoine Walker and you got Rafe LaFrentz. And I spoke to one of your partners and I said, why did you just get a really tall guy with foot and back problems? He said, we think that's going to get better. You just traded for a tall guy with foot problems. People in New York kind of know him. Why is that going to get better?
Kristaps feels fine. His foot, there's no wood around, but Kristaps feels fine.
You're saying he's not Rafe LaFrentz too?
I don't. I remember Rafe. Rafe had back surgery, actually. Back surgery, yeah. I just saw Antoine the other day. It all goes around and comes around. But right now we feel like we've got, and Vegas feels like we've got co-favorites for the title.
Last encore question, then we'll move into other things, including media. Do the Celtics need additional players in the front court? Do you need depth? That's the knock.
I think the game plan is to see how we do, and we've got all the way till February 15th or whatever the deadline is. But if we need to make another serious move to get to the top of Everest, stay tuned, we'll do it.
Let's move over and talk kind of how people consume the game. Obviously, a lot of them consume them in arena, but how most people consume them, which is via television. The NBA's contract with its current partners expires at the end of next season. You're going to start negotiating next year. Mm-hmm. You're on the media committee of the Board of Governors. How do you, big picture, balance the need to have large audience with the need or the desire to get a lot of money? In other words, if you were able to get a huge contract from an app that almost nobody certainly has. How do you kind of think about balancing those things?
Right. Well, I think your question revealed something. You said most people consume the games through television.
I'm
not even sure if that's a little bit linear.
I meant video.
A little bit archaic, a little bit linear, but we are, actually, I had dinner last night with a head of a network, of a traditional linear network, just a social dinner with our wives, but there's interest. It's probably going to be a hybrid, I would think, going forward, but we're not allowed to talk to anybody until next spring, so we didn't talk at dinner, for example, but sorry about the convoluted and terrible answer, but here's where I think the NBA's growth domestically, we have good growth prospects and great support, but internationally, we're one of the two really international sports along with pro soccer, and we're the league in terms of basketball that really has the best, whereas soccer is a little bit bifurcated or more, divided up. It's a great sport. So I think that internationally, which would be streaming, is a big part of our future. So I imagine that it'll be mixed in.
Could you see domestically that there are certain games during the season that are only available via streaming to a domestic audience?
Well, that's the model of the NFL now, and they lead the way in a lot of things. But I really I'm not speaking for the league in this matter. I'm on the media committee, but we're not going to even meet until next spring to think about it.
Can I ask, when you say we're not going to meet or think about it, it reminds me a little bit, you hear in the NFL that, teams can't talk to free agents, but somehow weirdly, like a minute after free agency ends, there's a lot of contracts signed. This is the fastest in the world. You're really not having conversations with people?
This isn't insider trading or whatever it is. We're just not.
There is a move, and not just in the NBA, but in general, regional sports networks, which is how a lot of teams. You guys obviously have a deal with NBC Sports Boston, which is one of the few RSNs that's actually seems to be alive and succeeding.
Yeah, it's doing great.
What's, from your perspective, the basic explanation for why RSNs are failing, kind of around the country, and how you're seeing some teams, including like the Jazz and the Suns, move back to broadcast?
Right. Well, we're seeing, the decline of 100 million cable households in the United States. So traditional cable bundle down to probably settling out. I guess it's predicted at 50 million or so. So it's gone in half. And the bundle includes 150 channels, and people watch maybe 12 of those. And so that just doesn't seem to hold water going forward in the sort of click, pay-as-you-go streaming model. It just feels like it's old and new. So we've got a legacy model. It's great for the Celtics right now. We've got like 8 more years on the deal with Comcast and NBC. We really appreciate them, but eventually there'll be more of a transition. Are
you surprised though that some of that transition isn't to streaming or to other things, but that the transition's back to broadcast? Almost nobody has an antenna anymore.
Well, Ryan Smith is an example in Utah. He's an innovative owner, and he is putting games out on broadcast because his RSN has gone away, and he's very excited about the reach, and we're going to wait and see how that goes, but he's a very smart guy.
Do you believe, and I appreciate that you have not had these conversations.
By the way, this is just like an hour-long interview, but it's only 15 minutes. Because,
very short.
I mean, I needed 3 more espressos, and I already had 2.
I know you say you haven't yet had...
Look, he's speaking more slowly now.
I am.
I appreciate that.
You say you haven't had conversation. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this right. Some of the big streamers have kind of come out and said either publicly or kind of said to reporters, we don't really have interest in live sports. They might rhyme with Netflix. Do you believe...
They're probably the ones most interested. They're just sandbagging. But.
Well, that's what I mean, do you believe that the streamers in general not only have interest in live sports, but believe live sports is going to be essential to their survival?
Well, we do have to ask them. Here's what I think. I think that live sports, I do it for love. I do it for, I had the mortgage and all that stuff, probably still have it, but I do this for love and passion. Other people feel the same way. Not everybody in the world, but like 1 billion people are sports fans in the world. So it's a great place to find your audience, to communicate an advertiser message or whatever else. I mean, there is a business proposition here, even though my group and I did this purely for love. There's a business proposition underlying it, which is that people really care about watching sports live, and they don't want to watch it the next day, knowing the score. They want to watch it when it happens.
You mentioned your group. You, prior to buying the Celtics, you were full-time in venture capital. A bunch of your partners were. Some of them were in private equity or are in private equity. Private equity and VCs seem to be starting to dominate, particularly the NBA when it comes to ownership, but some other leagues as well. Is it as simple as VCs and private equity people are very rich and thus can afford teams, or is there a reason why this seems to be why the leagues seem to be getting taken over by individuals in those industries?
I mean, we didn't invent that, I guess, but we were one of the very first groups where it's like 25 of us. I put it together.
I tried to convince my former company that I should be able to get season tickets in the lower bowl so I could just source, and they said no.
Yeah. I've got 24 amazing partners. We're all still still together, by the way, 20 years later. These just happen to be the people I knew because I was in venture capital, a version of private equity, and these are the people I was able to attract to the deal. I said, look, it's the last Boston team that's going to sell in our lifetime, and we're going to do this for love, not money. We're going to win Banner 17 or die trying. So that's why we did it in the last Boston team. So they came in, we're still all together. That's just, maybe that's a private equity mentality. I don't know. But yeah, they had the wherewithal. But it's like, it's team play. Like you're teaming up with management teams, you're teaming up with partners. I don't know. Maybe it all kind of hangs
You
together.
do also have a venture capital from Causeway, Causeway Media Partners, kind of doing sports tech, media tech, et cetera. It's been a while since Causeway's raised a fund. Are you planning to raise another?
Yeah, we've got a couple liquidity events that we are hoping for and anticipating, but not done. And so that's be a logical time to raise Fund 3 at that point.
One of your portfolio companies was Niantic, which had an NBA game which got pulled. I'm curious, what were your thoughts? They had an NBA game and then it disappeared.
Yeah, that was my thought. I sort of noted that, but I'm not on the board there. But their bread and butter is Pokemon, and that is still going, and they have new games coming out. But Niantic's been they took a foray in the NBA and it didn't work out for them.
A couple other things that you're involved in, which I did not realize till we chatted backstage. You have a television show coming out, and I don't mean a basketball show, a sitcom?
Yeah, it's called Extended Family. It's based loosely on real life, which is that my amazing wife and her really good guy ex were married for a long time, but they knew early on, I guess, that it wasn't going to be maybe forever, I don't know, but they raised two great kids. He turns out to be the biggest Boston sports fan on the planet, but they got amicably divorced, and they're sharing a nest.
Who's in it? Who's
nesting
in the show?
with the kids. And so the name of the show could be The Nest, because I wrote a sitcom about it. It's when I showed up, his head was like, you can't marry the Celtics guy. You can marry like the Knicks guy or the Mavericks guy. You can't have this in Boston sports. So anyway, it felt like a sitcom. So there's 3 adults, there's 2 kids. It is the Celtics. There's a Celtics owner. It's Donald Faison from Scrubs. The ex is played by John Cryer from 2.5 Men, and it's coming out late November.
2 final things. There's also a tequila brand you're involved in?
Yeah, we make Cincoro tequila. My wife is the CEO. We do it with 3 other NBA owners. Wes Edens of the Bucks and Fortress. Jeannie Buss of the Lakers, who's a great person, a great friend. And then Michael Jordan.
Former owner. So one former owner. Someone no longer important.
He's a former owner, but he's the greatest of all time. He's a great person. So we've sold like 2.5 million bottles of Cincoro. It's the real tall one on the bar if you want to go see it.
Wyc, final question for you. The Celtics have, I believe, 25 players in the Hall of Fame. Who you have to put a starting 5 out. Who are your 5?
Oh, no, I don't do that. I'm sorry, but I can tell you, I'll tell you who I loved among the 20 years. I mean, it's Garnett, Pierce, and Allen, but really, Kevin Garnett changed everything when he walked into our door in 2007. Literally everything changed the day he came. He might be my favorite of all. He wouldn't let them lose, and he put the whole team on his back. So, but I get to see everybody on that 08 team every year.
Garnett was in that Adam Sandler movie. Did you try to cast him in your sitcom?
No, but that was I did. I actually asked him and Shaq to read for the part of the GM, and
did they read for it?
Neither one showed up.
Wyc, thank you.
I don't take it personally.
Wyc, thank you very much. Everyone, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you to our sponsors, West Monroe, Wells Fargo, Latham & Watkins. We will be having another one of these in San Francisco early next year. We will be having one next year here in New York. And also, if you're at Money 2020 in Las Vegas in 2 weeks, we are having a reception. Send me an email, Dan at Axios. I will let you know about it. Have lunch. Thank you again for coming.
Thanks, Zach.